What's going on, everybody? It's RoyJ coming at you with a brand new video, and it's been a while since I gave y'all my branded deck profile, at least a good couple of months, and it's probably just from the fact that I ended up not playing the deck once Quem came out because I didn't really want to drop the money on all of the new cards out of Cyberstorm Access. However, upon realizing that not only have they gotten cheaper, but I don't even really need all of them out of Cyberstorm Access, just a handful, I decided to go back to the deck, and I've been playing it the last few weeks at my locals. At first without Quem, but then I found one for a really good deal on TCG Player, and I picked up the Sanctifier Dragon as well, and I managed to cobble the deck into something I think is really solid. And whether you're here to net deck, get some ideas on how to build yours, or even just because you like the archetype's lore, today I bring to you my branded Despia Bestial deck profile for the July 2023 format. Starting us off, of course, we have the Despia monsters, that being 3 copies of Aluber, 1 copy of Despian Tragedy, and 1 copy of Ad Libitum of Despia. Now, I know a lot of players have cut Adlib in the past, or as of recent, I should say, now that Quem is out, and there are a few different combo lines that Adlib can end up just being an unnecessary addition to the deck, but I really enjoy Adlib for what he does. He comes up in so many different situations where you can get multiple uses of things like Mirror Jade or even Dragoon, and he functions in one of the combos, one of the better ones and more common ones at least, that utilizes Quem and Aluber, because you can dump it off of Gronguinho so easily, that really, I just can't see myself playing this deck without it. For our Spellcaster gals, we have 1 copy of Quem and 1 copy of Cartesia. Should I be playing 2 Cartesia? Yeah. Can I afford to play another Cartesia? No. Both of these cards are absolutely wonderful, basically the backbones of like the entire deck. Quem especially is a card that I didn't think would be all that amazing before I ended up getting it, but now that I actually have access to it, she just does so much for the deck, offering an additional layer of disruption your opponent has to get through in order to fully break your board, not to mention the amount of ways she can help you play through or around Ash Blossom is ridiculous. For the Bestial package, I'm still only on 1 copy of Lubellion and 1 copy of Saronir. I really don't think that more Bestials are necessary, even in the side deck, unless you expect like a certain amount of light and dark decks, or any deck that would die to a Bestial at your local setting. For a regional or something, for example, I really don't think that the Bestials would be like all too amazing to have in the main or the side. I think you really just need these ones. For Albaz and all of his pals, I'm playing 3 copy of the man himself, 1 copy of Mercurier, 1 copy of Kit, and 1 copy of Albion. So keep in mind this is the build that I've been using as opposed to the build that I'll probably be using in the future, so there are a few additions and things that I would probably end up removing. For example, Kit, while I absolutely love Kit, you know, obviously she's the mascot of the channel, she and the Branded in High Spirits are there in case we get ashed, and we use the Nadir Servant to play after it to get access to Mercurier and Mirror Jade on an end board, which is actually pretty good. But overall, they just make the deck slightly more inconsistent because they just add additional cards to the deck, preventing you from seeing cards like Opening or Branded Fusion, and most of the time they serve as win more or can end up just being clogs. I also was on 2 Albaz for the longest time, but I did bump it up to 3 after seeing a few suggestions, and because there was a few pivotal moments, especially in one game in a almost mirror match. It was branded, but it was Predaplant branded, where I realized, wow, I would have won this if I had the 3rd Albaz still in deck because the other 2 are banished. You can also see since my last deck profile, I did cut down from 2 Mercurier to 1 because I'm no longer playing Gold Sark, and I'm not really doing the combo involving Rinbrum. Like, even if I open the Lubellion Branded Fusion, I really don't want to do the Rinbrum combo. It just ends on so little compared to the combos you can do now with Quem, that 1 Mercurier is really all you need, using it in hand or on field for the negate off of Quem, and then banishing it from grave off of something like your Saronir or an Albion later. And for the 2 miscellaneous monsters, 1 Dark Magician for your Dragoon, and I am maining the 1 Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, because it's just such a crucial card to win free games that you shouldn't. Funnily enough, I think I've only puppet locked once or twice in the 2 weeks I've had Quem, which I think is pretty funny. Like, most of the time you either don't open the required cards or you end up getting disrupted to a certain degree, or even in certain situations, you know, against Fluanderies or a deck that doesn't really care about special summoning too much, it just doesn't really do anything. But I think it is kind of just a mandatory add-in. It's one of the most important things about Branded right now, because Branded does have its faults opposed to the other meta decks, but with the Gimmick Puppet lock, you kind of just jump up an entire tier on the list. And so if you have access to the Quem and Sanctifier plays, then you're gonna want to play Puppet. That's it for the regular monsters. Onto the hand traps, simply just 3 copies of Ash Blossom and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. These are basically the best hand traps you can play in the main right now, and they're also really good crossout targets because I am playing crossout. Not too much to dwell on here. Diving into our back row, we have 3 copies of Branded Fusion, 3 copies of Branded Opening, 3 copies of Nadir Servant, and 3 copies of Fusion Deployment. So, one sec, let me get these all situated here. These are the 3 ofs that I'm playing in the Spells and Traps section. All of these cards are just absolutely insane. Branded Fusion obviously is Branded Fusion. Branded Opening now serves multiple purposes other than getting a Luber or sometimes searching an ad lib or something. Like, opening this plus a Luber is so ridiculously strong. The Nadir Servant is currently there for the full Nadir package, quote-unquote, to play after you get Ash, but it's also there just to get Quem in case you want to go for certain plays after you get Ashed regardless. And then Fusion Deployment just serves as such a great card. I mean, fetching an Albaz going second to break apart a board or Beta Disruption, fetching Cartesia to extend through Ash, or go for other plays such as going for the Puppet Lock. Fusion Deployment plus Aluber is a Puppet Lock, by the way. I don't see myself in the future cutting down on copies of any of these cards. And then for the one-ofs, of course, the 1 branded Lost, the 1 branded in Red, and as of the moment, 1 branded in High Spirits. These 2, of course, are basically mandatory, but High Spirits, as I mentioned, I'll probably end up cutting alongside the kit in order to either just cut down from like 43 cards I think I'm at to 41 cards, or to fit in room for something else, like maybe a main deck Dark Ruler or something. High Spirits is a fine card overall. I'm not saying it's like a bad card, but in certain situations, you'd kind of just rather see something else, even if it is pretty good discard fodder and recovery. Oh yeah, and then the 1 Retribution, because this card is just really, really good. As mentioned, I am playing Crossout, so 2 copies of Crossout and 1 copy of Called by the Grave. So I'm probably going to end up cutting the Crossout and putting them in the side for things like, you know, D-Barrier and stuff like that, Evenly Matched, Dark Ruler, etc. Because, honestly, you have enough things between Branded Opening and Nadir Servant and stuff like that to play past an Ash anyway. Like, more than anything, Imperm kind of hurts a bit more on a Luber if you don't already have Branded Fusion loop. But I think Crossout, similarly to Branded and High Spirits, kind of just takes up room in the deck that you could use for other things, because you'd rather see a gas card more often than not. I noticed a lot that a lot of people aren't even maining Ash. If anything, they're citing it if they're playing hand traps at all. So cutting Crossout Designator to the side for certain side deck situations doesn't even feel like a bad play. And then finally, we have 1 copy of Foolish Burial because it's a starter and an extender all on the same boot. Getting something like Tragedy to grab Quem or Aluber is so good. That's going to do it for the main deck. On to the extra deck. I'm going to try to get all the Albaz fusions on the screen at once here without my sidebar blocking them off. We have 2 copies of Mirror Jade, 2 copies of Albion, 1 copy of Lubellion for our fusers, and then for our board pieces or for our, you know, Albaz targets and stuff like that, 1 Sanctifier, 1 Rinbrum, 1 Sprind, and 1 Titaniclad. Not too much to explain about the top 5 cards here. Obviously, it's Mirror Jade, Albion, and Lubellion. For the additional ones, though, Sanctifier, of course, is there for the Puppet Lock, though can also get you plays with Cartesia and or Quem. Rinbrum is just a really good thing to send off of Mirror Jade more than anything. I've noticed I've sent it a lot more than I've summoned it anymore since I added Dragoon to the deck ages ago. Sprind is mostly there for the Nadir Servant stuff, however, it's also a good card in case you get Contact Seed, and it's actually a really good Albaz target, because fusing off an opponent's really powerful monster, especially in the mirror match, hitting something like a Guardian Chimera, instead of making a Mirror Jade, you can make a Sprind, and Sprind can move to a column and just nuke everything in that column. And then finally, the Titaniclad. Obviously, it's another really good Albaz target, but it's also there mostly to summon Quem. However, it's also something that I'm using to replace the Luluwililith. I don't feel like playing the Luluwililith. I think it just kind of takes up space in the extra deck that you could use for other cards. I might experiment it for like a locals or something like that, but moving into a higher tier event, I don't think it's a necessary card. I kind of just prefer summoning Queritus. Speaking of Queritus, for the Despia fusions, we have the 1 Queritus and the 1 Masquerade. Nothing too crazy to explain here. Queritus is mostly there for the Grand Guignol, though you can also just fuse into it regularly. And then Masquerade is mostly there for time or for just finishing off games when your opponent has low life points already. Speaking of Grand Guignol, we have the 1 copy here, not too much to explain there. And then for the miscellaneous fusions, we have 1 Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, 1 Predaplant Dragostapelia, and 1 Guardian Chimera. All of these are pretty self-explanatory. I mean, Dragostepelli is a really good target, Dragoon is one of the best cards in the entire deck, and then Guardian Chimera still is to this day the best branded in red target. And that is going to do it for my branded deck profile for the July 2023 format. I hope you all did enjoy. This deck's been a lot of fun lately. I've been seeing a lot of success with it, but it's definitely a deck that I have to try really hard with to understand, as opposed to some of the other decks I've played in the past. I'm not quite sure at the moment if I'd like to continue on with it. I probably will, especially because of the money dump of Quem, but we'll just have to see how it plays out when we get more and more awesome stuff revealed for other decks in the future. But with all that being said, that's going to do it for the video. If you liked it, please be sure to leave a like, as I'll split this video and the channel into the YouTube recommended. And if you like this content and you want to see me like the rest of my deck profiles, perhaps consider subscribing, because we're on to 5,000 subscribers by the end of 2023. Not to mention, it supports the channel more than anything else, and it's absolutely free. Also, if you want to support me directly while getting some awesome TCG merchandise in the process, be sure to check out Tapio cards in the link down below, use code Aurora5 for 5% off, and to support me financially. But once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.